Yo, call me a Sonic Smack the way I'm feeling like a rock. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Games Kids. Today and only today, we are here to talk about the next phase of Sonic the Hedgehog. As you know, we close out the summer season, we're entering the fall. What we can expect, what major milestones just happened that might lead us to what is about to be an explosive fall for announcement and news. So guys, I want you to sit down, relax, enjoy the video, make sure you subscribe to your boy, support the content. And now we just hit 80K, by the way, on the YouTube side. Congratulations to us. Now we got to get to that big 100K and get that plaque. Let's lock in together. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, let's start with the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about today. That's right. We've found our flame and it's you. Thank you for helping Sonic Frontiers surpass 5 million copies. So that's right. Our GOAT, Sonic Frontiers, finally hit 5 million copies. Now, obviously, if you've watched any of my content over the years, you know it's no surprise that I love this game. It's pretty much the game that set me on the map on at least, you know, the content side for Sonic the Hedgehog. And it's a game like I always tell people, like, for me, this game, that's why this game is so special to me, is because, like, it really was the game that, like, for me, you know, not only was the return of it for Sonic for like so many people, right? It always was the return of Sonic for many ways after the 5-year gap from Forces to this. But it was also like, you know, for me, it was, you know, the moment where, like, from the announcement to the release, I was covering every little bit of it. You know, I played it through every moment on stream. You know, I had every reaction, predictions, DLCs, analysis, breakdown about everything about this game. And so it's one of those games that I just have a special place for it in my heart. And a lot of fans do, you know. It's funny when it comes to Sonic Frontiers. I feel like over the years, like any game, I feel like Sonic isn't, you know, exclusive to this. This is just the nature of the internet. You know, a lot of games are beloved, and then, you know, the glasses fall off, and then, like, you know, people start to have mixed opinions on it. Then you got the people that are like, this is a masterpiece. You get some people be like, this is ass. Then you get those people all arguing together. But at the end of the day, it's very clear to see that Sonic Frontiers was a mega hit for Sega and Sonic Team. Now, obviously, when it comes to Sonic, I think they have a lot more higher expectations. I think they want Sonic to be a platformer series that can sell, you know, 10 million plus, you know, because even like Kirby, a game like Kirby and the Forgotten Land sold like 7.5 million, you know, Crash 4 seemingly sold like 10 to 15 million, you know, Spyro's selling a lot. So I do think Sega and, you know, Sonic Team acknowledge, like, we want to be there, bro. We should be there. We're Sonic. You know, we're making $500 million at the box office now. You know, a lot more people are brand aware, but, you know, Sonic is still making it out of the trenches. But I think Sonic Frontiers was the first big step towards that, and we all acknowledge that. You know, it's like, that's why this game continues to be, like, talked about and enjoyed by so many people. It's just like, yeah, like, Sonic Frontiers means a lot to everyone. And apparently, by the way, this doesn't even include the Switch 2 sales, the Switch 2 Definitive Edition sales, which I don't think are that much, because it's not like they mass marketed it or anything, right? They very much clearly just, you know, they pretty much, you know, went in there and they, you know, released it spontaneously one day. But for Sonic Frontiers, it's just, I'm so happy that it ended up being a success. And like we always talk about it with Sonic Frontiers, like, it's a game that you can tell when you play it has like a lot of heart, and you can tell a lot of, like, you know, soul went into it to make Sonic cool again, to make things interesting with the open zone and everything. And obviously it has a lot of issues still, you know, and Kishimoto, the director, has acknowledged that, and has in fact, even on a recent interview, talked about Sonic Frontiers. There was a Japanese article interview where he was talking about sort of how, you know, the next game he really does want to lean more on, you know, the momentum-based platforming and the movement that fans prefer instead of always relying on boost. I really do think that next game is going to be like a really nice blend of, you know, boost with, you know, physics-based, maybe not physics, what's the base? Boost / momentum-based platforming. My idea would be that, like, you have a certain amount of boost, right? Kind of like how Sonic Unleashed on the Wii worked, right? Where you have a certain number of boosts, and you can use that boost to, like, you know, do your roll down a hill and then maybe like jump up to a high platform. That way you have a mix of, you know, momentum-based platforming with regular movement. I think that would be incredibly fun if they did something like that for the game. But obviously, you know, Sonic Frontiers, no surprise that it is a very beloved game, and it's so obvious we're gonna get a direct sequel to it. I mean, every interview that comes up about it or anything, like, they very much say that, like, you know, we're working on the next one. It's gonna be awesome. But I did want to acknowledge this as a massive milestone. You know, Sonic for a long time, like, You know, you think of Lost World on the Wii U, not a great seller. You think of Forces, not a great seller, right? Really, the last time they had a massive success before Frontiers was Generations. You know, obviously they had Mania, which is a very good critical success, but not necessarily a sales darling. But I do think they're expecting the next mainline game to hit like these numbers fairly early on. And you know, I get scared because I do know a lot of people are expecting next year for it to be 3D Mario versus 3D Sonic, which obviously on a fan perspective, like for me, I'm like, hell yeah, bro, give me my two phenomenal cakes, give me my two massive meals. But I know sales wise they'll probably want to see what they can do to move it out the way. But I think Sonic is a long-term seller, to be honest with you. Again, like Frontiers like has been steadily selling as time has gone on. You know, we had found out a long time ago it was 2.5 million, then we found out it was 3 million, then 3.5, then 4, you know, 4.5, and now here we are with 5 million. So just wanted to give a shout out to one of my favorite games of all time, one of my go-to, one of my babies. And yeah, congrats. Of course, I want the next game to be even bigger and better. Now, speaking of bigger and better, we actually had a pretty notable reveal from Sega's last investor Q&A. I know I'm holding this pen like I know what I'm talking about most of the time. But yeah, so shout out to, of course, Christina for finding this information. But yeah, so Sega confirms with investors that large-scale promotions for the 35th anniversary of Sonic in the films are expected to start Q3 of the fiscal year, and they expect a lot of income revenue. Q3 starts in 2020. Q3 starts in October 2026. So I'm trying to see how they said this exactly here, right? So Q1 of FY was roughly at the same level as the same period last year. Has generally progressed as expected. Promotions for the Sonic and Angry Birds movies are planned to be concentrated in Q3 and Q4. Revenue to be increased in the second half of the year. We feel confident that we're on track to achieve our full year target of 20 billion yen. And to what extent do anniversary events for titles like Sonic to contribute licensing revenue? Also, can we expect similar contributions from other flagship IP like Persona in the future? So it says licensing and merchandise development related to Sonic anniversary of Sonic begin in Q1. Significant revenue growth is expected to accelerate in Q3 and Q4, coinciding with the film release and the accompanying large-scale promotions. In addition to Sonic, we are advancing global licenses to other key IPs such as Persona, Angry Birds, and we expect these to licensing revenues to expand in the second half of the year. So that's a pretty big thing to say. You know, they're expecting sales to significantly accelerate in the fall. Obviously, you know, Sonic movie, you know, we look at the math, right? Sonic movie 4 comes out beginning of March. I think it's March 6th or March 5th, which should be before the end of, you know, the final quarter, which should be like by end of March 31st. And yeah, obviously we're going to be getting a trailer by the fall. Realistically, that trailer is probably going to be out about end of October, beginning of November. I know a lot of people are thinking and expecting it's going to be at the Game Awards, but I think the Game Awards is a little too late. That gives you like, what, 2.5 months of marketing if you start from the Game Awards, which I think is a little too short for a movie this big. They're probably going to want to start getting the, you know, advertisements starting by, you know, late fall. So I'm thinking late October for the movie stuff. Now, again, they're also saying a lot of the anniversary stuff and more are going to make money in the fall. So I wonder what's expected. I mean, obviously, you know, the next season of Crossroads is probably going to be sold. They're probably going to put their games on discount for the holiday. I still do think there is, you know, not to put my hopium copium for at least this game's releases. Like, obviously, I think it's cooked for a 2D or 3D Sonic game to come out this year. I think that's going to be this year, but next year. But I do think they are going to announce something major by this fall. You know, if they're saying they're expecting, you know, a growth in Sonic stuff by this quarter, I'm expecting stuff that's going to be announced that is going to, you know, up the revenue. Like, for example, first and foremost, I'm fully now on the camp that that the mainline Sonic game is going to be announced at the Game Awards. I feel like that's where my head's at, man. I think Game Awards, maybe you give like, you know, some extra Sonic Movie 4 footage, right? Or trailer 2. And then, you know, full game reveal at the Game Awards. I would even say they're probably going to go all out and maybe even give like, you know, a gameplay trailer as well as with the CG there. I think they're going to be going all in on the reveal of the next mainline game. I don't think it's just gonna be, you know, a little bit of like here's a 5-second CG teaser. I think we're starting. You know what I mean? I think the journey is about to begin. So I think that's gonna happen. We could, again, because I'm trying to think of the events that are left for the year. There's Gamescom, right, which is coming up in a week, and maybe they'll show something there. I'm just not confident in that. And then, you know, in the fall, we have a Nintendo Direct. Usually there's usually a state of play because both of them come out before TGS, where there's going to be a bunch of video games teased and announced and all that stuff over there. And then the next major event after that is usually the Game Awards in December. So it's going to be at one of those. I guarantee it. I feel in my body. Now, the only thing I could also expect this fall in terms of revenue is obviously we have Sonic Pico Park, right? That's the next, you know, big 2D Sonic game releasing. That, you know, I don't know how much revenue it's going to drive. Now, here's the thing, right? Pico Park, the original, sold quite a few million copies. I think it was like 5 to 6 million copies or something like that. And I feel like it's a very easy stream game. I feel like a lot of big streamers are going to be able to latch onto it. So I think it's going to sell a decent bit of copies. It's going to be funny when it outsells a shit ton of Sonic games just for being, you know, a smaller scale Steam game. But I think it's going to sell a lot. And I'm expecting a drop. I feel like some sort of like, you know, some game, right? Dropping Adventure 1 and 2 on the eShop or something, or maybe, you know, Advanced Collections or Rush Collections or something, right? Some sort of digital drop of some kind or a physical or whatever. Like, I feel like they're going to drop a thing if they're saying, you know, significant revenue growth is expected to accelerate in Q3 and Q4. Like, I feel like you don't say that unless, like, besides the movie, you're expecting, like, a massive up. Obviously, you know, for Q4, they're talking about the movie. You know, Q4 is basically January to March, and they're talking about the movie there. That's where we're going to see the big bucks happen, and I'm sure they're going to want to have something out by then. I still stand by the fact that I think a 2D Sonic game will release around the movie, and then the 3D Sonic game will come out in the fall, right? I think it's going to be one of those out there. But yeah, 2D game alongside the movie and then 3D game in the fall is kind of where I'm leaning at for this. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, in the comments, let me know what you guys, you know, think and expect from this. But yeah, I don't know. It's getting exciting. You know, and I was talking about this on Twitter, right? I understand this anniversary has not been, you know, the holy grail of anniversaries. And I've said this before, you know, anniversaries at the end of the day are an excuse for merch. If a game lines up, it lines up. But if it doesn't, you know, I think this anniversary, it hasn't been perfect, but I do think by the end of it, people are gonna look at it like really fondly. I mean, again, like they've still done a decent amount of stuff. Continued Crossroad DLC as well, announcement of year 2. We had Pico Park, we had the Chaotix case files, we have like continued IDW stuff. You know, we're about to talk about it right after this, but Fortnite is a massive deal, right? We're about to get movie promos coming up. They're doing the Metal, the Sonic, you know, animated special coming out later this year. They've got the merch that they've been dropping. They're doing that Chaos Emerald Hunt that, you know, they're doing the charity stream, you know, little self, you know, joy for that one, right? Sonic Frontiers DE, even though it was kind of a whatever release, like they have been constantly doing stuff this year, even if not the most exciting things ever. You know what I mean? And like, again, continuing into the fall, if we end up getting like some game announcements as well as, you know, movie ramp up stuff, like I think it's going to be like a great anniversary, you know, through and through. It's like, like I said, I think people put too much stake on anniversaries. You know, they're not the biggest deal, but you know, it's also worth celebrating. And I think they're celebrating it as much as they can. You know, they've even featured artists, right? They're acknowledging a lot of fan work. So it's still a fun anniversary despite anything. All right, I wanted to touch a little bit on the biggest deal of the year, which is the Sonic Fortnite thing. We've talked about it a few times now because of, you know, reaction stuff, but they did release the official banner, and man, I gotta say, and I'm sure you all feel this, there is something joyous in my heart about Sonic leading the pack, you know, of video game characters over here, you know, having Sonic being the frontliner. In fact, I think today they fully acknowledged that Sonic is going to be the final character in the battle pass. Let's watch this little video they dropped on the game. They got like an actual sprite animation studio. So I think these are the characters that you get in the battle pass. We've got the So Retro Jonesy, which is very funny as he goes over. Look at that. I do like how the sprite coordinates to each game he's on. I do wish that the Battle Pass was more like video game characters and not just Sonic. You know, at least in the Battle Pass. I know a lot of the characters are going to be selling them, but it is very funny. So, dude, this is just so funny, bro. The Super Mario Kart ass F-Zero section here is hysterical, bro. It really is. And then there it is. Yeah, look at him, bro. Look at him in this. Sonic and Jonesy and Tails, bro. My favorite trio in Sonic the Hedgehog. And then he's in this random pickaxe world. Who is this character? I mean, I guess that's Peely. They've got their fighting game love, obviously, right? Peel him. I like that instead of finish him. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I like the Mortal Kombat love there. And then they dropping, man. They're dropping, doing their thing, bro. And then there's the Lord of Doom. And there's Sonic. Look at Sonic looking. I love that sprite he's got. Very nice animation for this, bro. Fortnite Chapter 7, Season 4, Override. Break the rules, change the game. So you can see here, like, the unlocks. And then, yeah, I think Sonic is going to be the last unlock you get in here. But yeah, I really like this. I really like this this old school sprite. It looks like a Sonic 3D Blast sprite almost. But I find it's, like, super endearing. It's super cute. And again, it's just nice to see, oh yeah, 64-bit series anime. It's just nice to see, like, Sonic leading the pack for whatever they're doing for this season. I think it's a big deal. And, you know, I talked about this a little bit in the videos where we reacted to the trailers. Like, I feel like 2 years ago, this would have been like way bigger because I feel like, you know, 2 to 3 years ago was still like really prime Fortnite, like when it was really like the biggest thing you couldn't escape. But it does feel like this season is getting like a shit ton of buzz. And you just have Sonic, Master Chief, you know, Ryu, Mega Man, Crash, Pac-Man, Spyro, Sora, by the way, right over here. You know, you've got Shadow standing back there, you know, Geralt, and then you've got Blanca. Like, it's very cool to see all these characters together. Now, some of these are also in the game. There's also Joker looking very funny in the center, as well as this random guy from FNAF. I don't know who he is. But yeah, I think this is a massive deal for the Sonic franchise to be leading. And this is kind of like what's probably going to tie in to the fall marketing. And this is why I was saying that, like, I feel like we're about to enter the next step of Sonic because, you know, it's end of summer. We're getting this Fortnite stuff, you know, then it's going to lead into the fall for Sonic, right? Where in the fall, probably Pico Park is going to release, and then boom, Sonic movie trailer, and then boom, main game announcement. Like, I think everything is now culminating, and I honestly think that this Fortnite stuff is kind of the beginning of it. Like, I feel like the Sonic is going to sell a lot. And it's funny, I've seen a lot of debates and conversations about, like, the design. I think it's really good, man. Like, obviously, if this was, you know, the next mainline game, I'd be like, what the fuck are we looking at? But for Fortnite, where the characters just have to be taller and they have to make do, I actually do like the Yukawa cell shading with like the light blue. As someone who's drawn Sonic, it's important to get like with the shading, like that light blue on him, because like no other character really has that except I guess you know, Joker has a little bit here. But yeah, having the light blue on the arms and everything is cool. I wish you didn't have the weird shoulder pads, but it is what it is, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that they're doing. So yeah, overall, I'm really excited for this. And I just feel like, you know, this summer for Sonic was funny. It was a bit of like a chill summer. You know, there were some things. I feel like this summer things were like teased. And, you know, now we're getting to the big stuff, right? You know, as we go into the fall. Like this summer, we got the announcement of Crossroads Season 2, the, you know, announcement of the Sonic animation, the announcement of this Fortnite stuff. And now, like, everything I feel like is going to start coming to fruition over the next few weeks. And I'm really excited for it, man. I'm really excited. You know, we've got the Crossroads tournament happening in October as well. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to be excited about. But guys, I think that's going to be it for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What are you excited for? What are you not excited for? You know, what's going on? Let me know what you think. And of course, I love you, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.